Cloned horses, a league of their own. Since the beginning of time, nature has intended for a new horse to be created from two previous horses, one male and one female. Recently, new scientific advances have added a different way to create a new horse, cloning. Instead of conception from an egg and sperm, cloning is the process of inserting DNA from one horse into the hollow egg of another to create an exact copy, according to Katrin Hendricks. This method may be new and industrious, but is the opposite of what nature intended. Breed registries such as the American Quarter Horse Association, or AQHA, have established the industry of recording the lineage of a horse for multiple generations. Instead of developing a horse's breed by mixing genetics of two different horses, cloning repeats the same genetic makeup over and over again, which is why these horses should not be allowed to register in an accredited breed registration association. Along with horses, there are many animal species that cloning has been practiced on. Kelly states that the first successful cloning of a mammal took place in 1996 with Dolly the sheep. From then on, trial and error methods have been used by scientists to develop different techniques of cloning to perfect the process for each desired species. In horses specifically, eggs are either harvested from live mares or obtained from undeveloped eggs in vitro. Chromosomes, or DNA, from the donor or original horse is then inserted into the egg. Following insertion, a stimuli activates the embryo that begins development. This is all stated in Hendricks' summary of cloning. This inserted DNA is then reprogrammed by the egg upon insertion to ensure that the embryo will properly develop. To initiate pregnancy, the cloned embryo is transferred to the oviduct of a recipient or surrogate mare right after the DNA has been inserted, stated by Westhausen. The first cloning success story of animals within the equid species took place in 2003 when one horse and 3 cloned mules were born, according to Hendricks. The efficiency of this technique has improved drastically with continued developments going from 1 foal born out of 100 embryos to 9 born out of 26 embryos. One institution that has established a world-renowned reputation for cloning horses is Texas A&M University. The university has their own biomedical sciences equine embryo laboratory that is considered to be one of the best in the country, according to Hendricks, in her cloning research study. Only 2 years after the first cloned horse was born, Texas A&M foaled 2 of their own clones. In order for a lab to have as much success as Texas A&M does, they must also have top-of-the-line staff. One of the veterinarians who specializes in cloning is Dr. Katrin Hendricks. Hendricks views cloning as a method to preserve the genetics of a horse and has been quoted saying, "Cloning should be viewed as a method for producing a breeding animal rather than a means to duplicate a performance horse." In her summary on cloning of the horse, Hendricks also stated that it is unlikely that a cloned foal of a previous champion will perform at the same caliber of the original. There are many different developmental factors that could affect how a cloned foal performs. However, if a cloned horse is meant to preserve genetics, the main way that these genetics are kept track of is by registration. An entire new system would have to be created and adapted by the association to accommodate cloned animals and keep the genetics separate from the original. When the popularity of cloning began to spread across the industry, research was conducted by AQHA members and officials who studied the potential effects that cloning would have within the association, recorded by Davison. AQHA was supported in their beliefs in finding the results from a survey of 3,000 randomly selected members showed that 86% of those members were opposed to cloning. Despite the high opposition to cloning, there was a proposal to allow cloned horses to be registered strictly for breeding purposes. It was not passed into the rulebook. A second proposal was also introduced that suggested to allow the offspring of cloned horses to register. This suggestion was also not passed. Shortly after these instances, Jason Abraham and Greg Van Clayson tried to challenge AQHA's denial of registering a cloned foal. In 2012, these quarter horse breeders claimed the association did not follow federal and state antitrust statutes. The following year, a Lubbock, Texas jury ruled in Abraham and Van Clayson's favor, but they did not receive the $6 million in damages they requested. In response to this ruling, AQHA filed an appeal notice, which was then later granted by the U.S. District in Amarillo. The appeal meant that AQHA would win the case and were not required to register cloned horses or their offspring, according to Davison. To defend their stand on the issue, AQHA argued that allowing the registration of cloned horses would shorten the different genes available, lower the demand for stallions, and would not progress the breed itself. A statement found within the official website of AQHA reads, With clones, we are not moving forward, we're staying the same. Other than just the potential harm to the standards and written laws of these associations, there are some scientific drawbacks. Since doing procedures are fairly new, long-term health risks have not been studied, according to Davison as well. One concern is that by using the same genes over and over again, the risk of multiplying unknown genetic diseases is intensified. Also, the creation of diseases may be done unknowingly. When a quarter horse is purchased, AQHA must provide the DNA records to prove the lineage of that horse. Genetic testing is a popular method among the horse's owners to verify an animal's mother and father, but DNA testing cannot prove or show the difference between a clone and the original. Despite the restrictions on registration, potential health risks, and other unknowns, a polo player from South America has had great success riding cloned polo ponies. In 2016, Adolfo Cambiaso rode a team of 6 cloned horses to win a prestigious match in Palomero, South America. This was unheard of in the sport of polo, or any other sport for that matter, so it wasn't a surprise when Cambiaso's feat was heard by people from all over the world. The team that carried Cambiaso to the championship consisted of 6 mares, all cloned from the same donor mare, Quatera, who had once been a champion herself, according to Cohen. The creation of these horses wouldn't have been possible without the help of Katrin Hendricks from Texas A&M, and also from the founder of Crestview, Alan Meeker. Meeker was the financial sponsor of the cloning, and he believes that the majority of the credit of polo belongs to the horse, as they carry the rider into the position and maneuver through other players' ponies. On the contrary, Hendricks believes that the rider deserves the most credit and complimented Cambiaso by saying he could probably ride plow horses. Cloning or copying a horse does not create new genetics. Therefore, cloned horses do not belong in the same grouping as sexually reproduced horses. Included in the speech were points on the basic scientific explanation of cloning, the introduction of cloning to the equine industry, rulings of breed industries that have to do with cloning, risks of cloning, and successful cloning cases in the world of polo competition. In summary, by banning the registration of cloned horses, both the American Quarter Horse Association and the Jockey Club ensure that their respective breeds will always be progressively moving forward and will be developing new genetic combinations to produce the industry's best horses. Thank you.